is I'm going to ask Andrew to be on the starboard side. I'm going to be on the port side, and we're going to alternate. Okay, so if you want to ask a question, raise your hand, and that'll minimize what they call in radio dead air, that one person is going around. And when you ask a question, please stand up and keep the microphone up here, not down here, but up here so we can hear you. And it might be nice if you just say your first name and what city you're from, or what country in some cases, because Joe likes to know where his fans are from. And let's see, any other announcements? And we are going to wrap up 5 minutes early to give you a chance to go to the theater. And I forgot something. Mr. A.B., gentlemen, what deck is the theater on?
6.
Deck 7 and 6? Okay, yes. So if you want to be up in the cheap seats, deck 7 up in the balcony, or deck 6. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. I've been told by the front desk that it's a free event. There's no extra charge to go to. That'll be the Heist on the High Seas, and the gentleman who will be hosting that on the big screen will be someone very familiar to you. So anyway, who wants to ask the first question in our Q&A session? Okay, here we go. Please stand up, say your first name and where you're from.
Andrea, Mesa, Arizona. Are there going to be any more episodes where it's not murder along the lines of that kidnapping episode that you did where you were able to reunite the baby with the mother?
There are some more episodes like that. In fact, we had one last week involving two idiot kids with a .22 rifle, and they're blasting away at a streetlight, never killed a guy. But yeah, there are those coming up as well, where no one died. They should have or they could have, but they didn't. So yes, there are more of those. Yeah. And also, we're starting filming season 9 in February. So here we go again.
My name is Kathy, and I'm from Long Island, New York. And I know the Springs is near several military bases. And we saw in a few episodes that there was, some interaction between you and the military there. What percentage would you say? I mean, we only see a fraction of what actually went on during your career, but interaction with the military, was that a lot?
Well, it was in some cases and none in others. There is a military-industrial complex in Colorado Springs. The generals like it there, so there's a lot of things happening there. And there's NORAD, North American Air Defense Command, there's Schriever Air Force Base, there is Peterson Air Force Base, there's Fort Carson, Colorado, and there's the United States Air Force Academy. So the place is surrounded by military. At any given moment, there's 100,000 active duty military in Colorado Springs. We had very little contact, if any, with the United States Air Force. Once in a while, but very seldom. Our contact was U.S. Army. The Army, it's a question of numbers. I mean, they're the largest group. There's 30,000 troops at Fort Carson and 15,000 civilians, so it's a little city of its own. And it's a federal reservation, so the FBI has jurisdiction there. But these are crimes committed off post in the city, and they're active duty Army. There was so much of that I was a member of the Officers Club at Fort Carson. Even though I wasn't in the Army, but everybody knew me. Hey, it's kind of, come on in. Because I saw those guys all the time. I was personally acquainted with every commanding general at Fort Carson. They changed the general every 2 years. I knew them all because I always had contact with somebody in the Army. So the Army personnel, they recruit you for the infantry. It's take a rifle and walk that way. That's your bullet stopper for the U.S. government, ultimately what you are. So there are times, and there have been times, when they take Class 4 recruits. A Class 4 recruit is a guy with a criminal record. Put him in the United States Army, teach him squad tactics. That seemed like a very good idea to me, but that's what they used to do. So I did have a lot of contact with Army personnel, and I put a lot of them in jail. Now, we had a deal worked out with them, which is it's unique to Colorado Springs. The Judge Advocate General at Fort Carson and the District Attorney of the 4th Judicial District in Colorado Springs had a mutual agreement that if an active duty military member committed a crime in the civilian world off the post, They could prosecute him in civilian court, or we could take him to the court martial through the Judge Advocate General. I had an episode about a colonel who was a dentist who tried to kill his old lady, right, by injecting her IV line with bug juice. It would have worked, but anyway, she survived because it never got to her. And they wanted to court-martial him because he was an embarrassment to the officer corps of the United States Army. He was a bird colonel. And they had to bring in generals from all over the world to sit in his board. And they couldn't wait to convict him. I think the jury was out for 5 minutes. All the generals string him up in Leavenworth, which is what they did. So yeah, you had a lot of contact with your Army.
Okay, so starboard side put Andrew to work, but in the meantime, this lady has a question over here on port side.
Hi, Joe. Carolyn from Valencia, Los Angeles County.
Okay.
How many unsolved cases have you had in your career, and are they still unsolved?
There were 31 out of 387. I made arrests in 356 of them. My clearance rate was 92%, the national average is 55%, so I'm a little better than that. Or I'm a dumb guy who doesn't know who killed 8% of the people. It all depends how you look at it. But of those 31 cases, I knew who killed 17 of them, and I couldn't prove it, and 14 of them I didn't have a clue. Of the 17, we have since cleared 2 of those through DNA testing, so I'm down to 29. And they were, the 2 people we did arrest were ones I believed were responsible at the time. But you can come and go from a place and not leave evidence of your passing. You can do that. It's just luck. It's not genius, but it happens. Despite how hard you work, you don't get them all. But I got a bunch of them. Over here now, yes?
I'm Donna Riley from Park City, Utah. My question is...
Nice place, Park City. I've been there.
So, what is your methodology for choosing what crimes you're going to put on an episode?
Okay,
And
that's a fair question. Yeah.
Are there some crimes that are too egregious or material that you can't massage into an episode?
Sure.
Freaking somebody out?
I'll answer both, okay? First question was, how do you choose? Well, Colorado has an Open Records Act, which means that you, as a citizen, could walk into the Colorado Springs Police Department, or any police department in Colorado, and say, my neighbor was murdered 10 years ago. I was always curious about that. And the case has been adjudicated, and the appeals are exhausted, so now it's a public record. Can I have that report? Sure. Was there a fee? Yep, $1 a page. How many pages are there? 3,000? Never mind, I'm not that interested in my neighbor. He's dead anyway, So people would walk out. But if you're a television network, you buy them 60 at a time. So I provided them with a list of all the murders I handled over a period of my career. And they buy 60 at a whack. And they read them all and decide which ones they like better than others. And then they call me, I contact the families. I don't have to contact the families, but I do. And it's nice to know that every time I've got contact with a family, would you mind if we presented your daughter's case, your son's case, your wife's case? The answer is always the same. Please do. I don't want my loved one to be forgotten. And so we do. And the second part of the question, are there crimes that are so egregious or so awful you won't put them on television? Absolutely. I will not do cases involving children or infants. I had a number of those. Violent deaths involving little kids? No. There are other cases, other cases involving particularly evil people who wind up getting killed, who our concern in court was, maybe the jury's going to dig him up so they can kill him again. You think the jury's going to give the guy the Silver Star for eliminating this guy, so those we don't do either. There are not many of those, but there are some that are just like, oh my God, no wonder you're going to kill. Because of the behavior of the victim. So you avoid those because it's too complicated. You can't buy a lipstick tube big enough to cover up some of those people. You can't.
Okay, over here on the port side.
Andrew Smith from Sacramento, California. I'm curious as to how you got selected for this honor of doing the program. How did they find you?
It's my wife's fault. It is. If she was in it, she's not in here at the moment, but it is her fault. Quickest answer possible is this. Diane Sawyer had a program in the late 90s called Turning Point, where they were trying to get into the 60 Minutes crowd, primetime TV, 2 or 3 stories. It was on Wednesday nights. I had a murder case to do national attention, and I look up in my office, we're busy, I'm really busy, I'm always really busy. And Diane Sawyer's in my door with her hands in her hips and a film crew behind her. And she announces, I'm Diane Sawyer. I said, I knew that, what do you want? I don't like the press, any level of press. You know, they're nothing more than voyeurs in my view. But anyway, she said, well, I have to talk to you about this case. I said, well, I have 2 hours I can give you right here, right now. We'll talk about this case. Well, I can't possibly do it in 2 hours. I said, well, it's a shame, because now you're down to 1 hour and 59 minutes. What are you gonna do? So she did, and I went about to try my case on national television, so I spoke generically about murder. No dates, no times, no names, violence in society, why people kill people. For 30 minutes. They put all 30 minutes on national television, they loved it. My mother-in-law called me from Pittsburgh. She says, I saw you with Diane. Sorry, I know, Mom, I was there. It was her. I didn't care about it. I was busy. Time goes by. That show dies. The natural death. You know, just I take it up here. They sold that interview to A&E, to the History Channel, because it was perfect. It was generic. No dates, no times, you know. Plug in 30 minutes of free tape on murder. And they did it all the time. A producer from Discovery sees it, writes me a letter. I'm retired. And I'm reading the letter, I put it down. My wife, Kathy, said, what's that? It's a letter from some guy who says he's going to put me on television like that's going to happen. She said, you should call him. I'm not calling him. No, you should call him. I'm not going to call him. I don't like TV people. You know, so this goes on for 3 days. She wears me out. All right? It's like, pow, you going to call him today? Well, that was a good one. You've been working out? I mean, you know, all right, I'll call him. I'll call him. Season 8 premiered August 29th. So it's her fault, and she was right.
Another question here on Park South.
Jerry from California.
Okay.
What is the percentage you think that you and your detectives, through your investigation, had the defendant actually confess to the crime that they did?
You don't get confessions in every case. I mean, I would get, if I had to guess, I'd say it's less than half. I'd say less than half, probably well less than half. Some people will lie to the end. Show them a movie of them doing it. That's not me. Really. You know. So it just depends on the personality and how you approach them. And what kind of case it is. It's very easy in a parental homicide to get a confession. Because a parental homicide, there's no intent. You don't intend to kill this kid. It's an attempt at discipline that goes awry. You choke too much, you punch too hard, the kid's dead. That person wants forgiveness even from you, even from the police, somebody. I didn't mean this, right? So after I would establish rapport with that sort of person, a parental killer, I'd get behind and put my hands on their shoulders and I'd whisper in their ear. And I'd say, I know you didn't mean it, did you? No, I didn't mean it. And it's true, they didn't mean it. But you get confessions less than half of the time. You can play a lot of games with people and cause a person to confess. And sometimes it's successful, most of the time it isn't. Because ultimately, they are driven by one thing, and that's fear of reprisal. What are you going to do to me? I'm not telling you what I did, because then you might do something really awful to me. You might kill me. You might give me a death sentence. You know, so it's very rare to get to say you have more than half a confession. I don't think so. No, it's going to be less than half, and I'm probably well less than half. Unless it's a criminal murder, then the rate's pretty good. But that's because it's a unique kind of crime. And we didn't have that many of those. I had them, but I didn't have that many. So that's your answer, less than half.
Over here, please.
Hi, I'm Renee from Ogden Valley, Utah. And I have a simple question. In one of your recent episodes, you said for fun you like to draw.
Oh, yeah, I
And then when
do.
you leave, you throw it away. Why do you throw
Yeah.
it away?
Because I'm not able to finish it, and I have to finish it. I've decided, I just like, no, I'll start again. I haven't done it for a while because I'm like a busy guy at the moment. Good thing I'm retired and I have time to work, you know what I mean? But the drawing thing, I've always enjoyed it. Kathy has preserved a lot of them. They hang in our house and so on. Some are pretty good, some are pretty bad, but you know, it's whatever. My wife is a painter, and she's a photographer, and she's a quilt maker, and she has an idea a second for a new hobby, but she's very talented. She's sold her paintings, so she's legally a professional artist. She has sold her photography, so she is legally a professional photographer. And she has sold her quilts, so she's pretty talented. As for me, I just do the drawing. And I talk in front of a camera. That's what I do, you know. But hey, whatever. Who's next?
So I don't know how many stories, oh, sorry, I'm Courtney from Colorado, and I don't know how many stories you still follow from Colorado, but we recently had a homicide up in Firestone with the Watts family, where the husband sadly
Killed a woman and 2 kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just curious how you would have approached a case like that if you would have.
That was
Uh-huh.
beyond simple. I mean, when I watched that on the news, I was sitting in Virginia, 2,000 miles away from Firestone, Colorado, and they've got the husband on the TV screen telling him how his family's missing with his arms folded, dancing on one foot to the other. I looked at the guy and said, he killed him. She said, why? I said, look at his body language. He killed him. They arrested him the next day. I mean, that was like a slam dunk. In the murder business, you call it a grounder. Because the guy hits a ground ball to the shortstop, you throw him out at first. You know, it's a grounder. It's just real simple. And that was very simple. What's not simple about this, he strangled those kids. You know how long it takes to strangle somebody? 2 minutes. You know why? Strongest muscles in your body are in your neck. Human head weighs 10 pounds. It's very, very difficult to manually strangle somebody. I don't know how you can do that to a little kid or whatever. Humans are capable of anything. So.
Hi, I'm Cheryl from Pittsburgh. I really hate to put you on the spot. I reread your book.
Yes.
Like last night, I was brushing up on it.
Oh.
I know. I wanted to touch base on your retirement. You make reference in your book that something happened that made you feel like you had to retire.
Yep. That was actually several things.
You would be hunted.
No, it was actually several things that did. It was more of this combination of things, but it was difficult to explain in a book. But ultimately, the explanation is this. I had reached my emotional limit, and I knew it. I couldn't tell another mother who wasn't coming home anymore. I just couldn't do it. Kathy was furious with me because I refused to be a desk pilot. I went out and kicked doors and pulled guns on people. I didn't have to, but that's what I signed up for. And I felt that I was going to be as violent as the people I was pursuing and wind up in jail for it. And I didn't want to do that. So that's when I meant about the hunted. You know, it turned into them. I was going to kill the guy that I had in the interrogation room. I was going to kill him. And I said, okay, I'm done. 74-year-old man, 5-year-old boy, his grandson, he sexually assaulted the kid. Why'd you touch that kid? And he said he came on to me. That's the last thing I remember. And my guy said, Lieutenant, and I'm strangling this guy, and he's turning blue. And I said, get him away from me. Call him medical and get him away from me. And I went to my office and I typed a 2-line memorandum. As of September 1, 1996, I'm retired. That was a Friday and I wasn't there on Monday. It took me 2 years to lose that venom. But I finally did. And I was sitting at my kitchen table and my wife said, hi. You haven't been paying attention. I've been sitting here for 2 hours. She said, well, I know, but you're the guy I married again. Well, that was very nice. Thank you. I wasn't a policeman when I got married. So. Can I answer your question? All right. Yes.
I'm Leah from Chicago, and my question is, what was the most interesting investigation that or crime, I guess, that you ever investigated?
Every single one of them. There they are. They're always, I had a sign made by a guy who makes signs. There's always a guy that burns your address into wood or whatever. And there was a guy in Colorado that really made some nifty ones. It was really good at it. So I said, I need you to make me a sign for my office. Sure. So he makes this sign. And it hung there for 20 years. So when I retired, I gave it to my guy that took over. And I said, you'll understand what that means in 60 days. And the sign said, mysteries make my head hurt. He related it only took him 30 days to figure out what that meant. But every single case is unique. It involves unique people, it involves unique everything. And to me, it was always the ultimate puzzle. Here we're faced with a crossword puzzle or a physical puzzle, and we don't have all the pieces. We got to make this into a photograph of somebody, and we don't have any parts. So it was fascinated me. It just fascinated me. It used to drive my guys crazy because we do this in the show where Carl Marino kind of visualizes what he thinks might have happened in a crime. So I used to do that. Except the difference was I talked to myself out loud, and everybody said, "Oh God, here he goes again." Everybody would walk out of the crime scene. They just walk out. He's nuts, And I look at something that the perpetrator did. And why'd you do that? Why did you do that? I talked to the victim. Who did this to you? And so on. And then people would go, he's that's it, man. I'm not staying in there. They just leave. But it helped me to visualize what happened. And so he expressed that in the show with that particular technique with Marino. So, but that is true. That's what every one of them was. Some more so than others. Some were startling. Sometimes you have to understand that people can do anything. They can do anything. And I used to tell my young detectives that. I'd say, remember, humans are capable of anything. Don't ever think somebody wouldn't do that because somebody will. And when I ended that morning meeting every day, because I had women as well as men, I said, okay, boys and girls, hit the street. Be careful, the humans are up. Every day.
Radio left here.
Hi, I'm Dee from San Diego, and because it happened in Colorado Springs, I was wondering if you had any involvement in the John Benet Ramsey case?
It did not happen in Colorado Springs, it happened in Boulder, Colorado, which is 120 miles north, another jurisdiction. I'll tell you something real quick about the Ramsey case. It's unprosecutable. It will never, ever go to court. It cannot. Fatal investigative errors were made by the Boulder PD in the first day of that investigation that results in no evidence being admissible in a courtroom, including the victim's body. What murder? The body is inadmissible. They did not have a crime scene warrant. So it cannot be done, irrespective of the press. Oh, the 10th anniversary of John Benet Ramsey. Okay, all right. And the reason they do that is that Ramsey family put the fun back in dysfunctional. Okay? You don't dress up a 5-year-old girl like a whore and have her dance around the stage to relive her mother's life. You teach the 5-year-old kid how to ride a bike, not them. Okay? So the sick part of that, the sad part of that. In 1993, 3 years before Ramsey was murdered in December of 1996. We had a meeting in Vail, Colorado. The Denver PD and myself, we paid for the meeting because we knew everybody'd show up because Vail is really nice. Right? It's in the summertime. Free beer, And we invited the 67 counties in the state of Colorado to come to the meeting. Every law enforcement agency, no matter how small, no matter how big, sheriff's departments, municipal, state, everybody show up. What do you want? Well, see this map? There's a map of the state of Colorado up on the wall. Drew a red line through the center of it. There are people in this room who've never investigated a homicide, ever, or haven't done so for 30 years. You don't know what to do when one happens, particularly if it's ugly. So you live north of that line, you call the Denver PD. You live south of that line, you call me. And we show up, we investigate your case, we lie to the press and say we work for you. We tie your case up with a yellow ribbon, you hold the press conference, and we disappear. Standing ovation. Standing ovation. Oh man, what a great idea that is. Oh, we love you, we love you. But the problem is, egos get in the way. When the event occurs, some young copper says, you know, we ought to call those guys. We don't need those guys. Oh, yes you do, because you're an idiot. You need those guys, okay? So I was retired for 91 days when that crime happened. The chief of the Boulder PD calls me and he says, I want to make you my deputy chief of investigations. I said, I'm sure you do. And you want me to take over the Ramsey case? Well, yes, you know, I know a bit of a reputation in the state. So that's why he called me. And he knew I was retired, so, you know, he's going to pay me $100,000 a year to go do this. I said, I have one question for you, Chief, just one. What's that? And I said, well, are the press accounts of what you've done so far reasonably accurate? Oh, no, they're accurate. I said, okay, good. They're going to fire you within a year. The next time there's an election, you're going to need a new district attorney. And he hung up at me. 8 months later, they fired him. The next election, they fired the district attorney. They drove that case under a bus. And that kid's in a grave and nobody's going to pay for it, irrespective of how many specials we have on TV and how many experts offer their opinions. I used to say this to my own detectives, I'll say it to you. Don't tell me what you think. Don't tell me what you believe. Don't tell me what your gut tells you. Tell me what you can prove. And if you can't prove it, don't waste my time telling me your opinion. Because they're useless, okay? In that particular case, that kid is never going to get her day in court, ever. Next question. Yes, sir.
My name is Jim from Columbia, South Carolina.
All right.
And formerly of Denver.
Out of the snow, huh? That's what I did.
I was wondering, in any of your cases where the perp was convicted, were they ever given a death sentence? And have you ever attended any of the executions?
Yes, on the death sentence, I put 5 people on death row in Colorado. And the Supreme Court of the state of Colorado, the most liberal in the country, commuted all 5 to life. So I've never attended an execution. Not that I wouldn't, you know. I worked a case once for 3 years involving a guy named Stanley, no middle name, Brown. Stanley was a little puke, little bitty guy, but you put a gun in his hand, he was Godzilla, okay? He had a 6-man stick-up crew up and down the Front Range. He murdered 5 people over a period of about a year. And before I identified him, the case took me 3 years to turn him. He robbed a bank in Denver and got caught. They put him in Leavenworth for 99 years. We tried him in absentia and got him a death sentence. But the feds have a policy. They won't release a prisoner to a death penalty state until he's done his federal time. They want their pound of flesh before you can kill him. So I went back to Leavenworth to serve him with a death warrant, okay? Because I couldn't wait, you know what I mean? So we go back to Leavenworth. The federal penitentiary in Leavenworth looks like a bank. I mean, it's got a marble front. United States Penitentiary, Leavenworth, Kansas, beautiful thing, you know. Been there since 1852, this prison. So anyway, it's immaculate. We go inside. We find this little goof. He's sitting in this interrogation room. And I said, Stanley, I have a death warrant for you. And he just looked, he stared at me. I said, you know, and Stanley, at the moment, this may change, Stanley, because this was in the 80s. We execute by means of poisonous gas. We take in a gas chamber and we cook you, you know? And I said, now Stanley, when the record for holding your breath in a collar shaped gas chamber is 1 minute and 52 seconds. When it comes your turn, Stanley, I expect you to do me proud. And he just sits here, right? And he's so mad he's shaking. And I said, why don't you hit me, Stanley, and we'll see what happens. But he didn't do it. Yeah. Look, he'll die in another attempt. He'll never kill it. But Stanley was a piece of work, you know. And so yeah, no, I've never witnessed it, but not that I would.
Over here on the port side.
I am Carla from Lynchburg, Virginia.
Hi.
Hello, and just wondering how often did you rely on criminal profilers, or did you utilize them in some of your cases?
We did all the time. The FBI unit, the behavioral science unit of the FBI, Conoco, Virginia. The nice thing about the feds is they have lots of money. They have their own Air Force. So you want a behavioral science unit, they get in their own jet and they show up. So it was very nice. We worked well with the FBI. You hear a lot of patter about FBI versus local law enforcement. It's a friendly rivalry. It's like the Army, Navy, and Air Force. You know, nobody likes each other, but they actually do. But they tease each other back and forth. Those guys are very sharp. The difficulty with behavioral science is this. If you have a statistical and diagnostic manual of personality disorders, and I own one, I bought this thing, all the human personality disorders. If somebody is textbook crazy, they match all the elements of that particular event. They're predictable in their behavior, they're predictable in where they live, what kind of car they drive, everything about their life. But if they're a mix, then you're gonna throw it out the window. Because he's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Well, then it's very difficult to predict. And a behavioral science student would be the first people to tell you that. He has to be kind of a classic before we can be useful to you. And there were those that were, and they were very useful. Behavioral science does work as long as the perpetrator is a textbook case of insanity. If he's a mixture of 2 or 3 things, then it's a little more vague. It can still be useful, but it's not as useful as if he's really specifically this way. Does that answer your question? Okay. What else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Joy from San Jose, California. I'm just curious if you're involved with the selection of the actors that do the reenactments.
No, it's kind of a funny story about that. I'll tell you how they found the actors. My wife and I go to MGM in California, and we're rookies at this. We have no idea what they're doing. You know, the director says to Kathy, "Can you provide a picture of him when he was 43 years old?" Sure. You know, so she does it, gives him a picture. The Screen Actors Guild has a book like an MLS book. Instead of houses, it has actors in it, men and women, front, side view, phone number, so on and so forth. The director had a picture of me, and he's paging through the book. He's looking at the book, looking at the picture, looking at the book, and he lands a finger on Carl Moreno, says, "Call him, see if he's available." And they called him, and Carl's been me for 8 years. You know? Now, the funny part of it is my wife and my daughter think he looks like me. My son and I think he doesn't. So we're split down the middle. But anyway, that's how they do it. They pick them out of a book, and I have nothing to do with it. And they did it in advance. So. And the other actors as well. Who else?
Hello.
Oh, okay.
I'm Mary Jean Vanetsky from St. Louis. Hello.
Hi.
And you have a great sense of humor.
Thank
and I was
you.
wondering what kind of practical jokes you played on other police officers.
Cops are deadly when it comes to, if you have a weakness, they're going to pursue it to the end. They're going to make you crazy, all right? And there are a lot of them I can't even talk about, but I had a partner in homicide who was Puerto Rican from New York City, Luis Velez, and Luis made the terrible mistake of telling everybody he was deathly afraid of snakes. And they said, "Oh, really? You're afraid of snakes?" "Oh, man, oh, God, I can't." "Oh, all right then." You know, so one of the other detectives had a little ranch outside the Springs. He kills a rattlesnake at his place. He brings it in. Now, police cars are rigged to where the dome light doesn't come on when you open the door, because then you're a target, they can see you, all right? So there's no dome light in the police car. So this guy coils that rattlesnake on Louis' driver's seat and opens its mouth with the fangs. And Luis goes out, and everybody's in the front window. You know, he gets in the car. It's dark. He gets in the car, and you see him, you know, do one of these, and he gets out with a flashlight, and then he empties his gun into the seat. And the rounds go through the seat, through the floorboard of the car, they're sparking off the street, you know, and everybody's dying laughing, right? And when he gets done and the slide locks back, he looks in the window and he sees Anderson, the guy that has the piece of drum. And you see him release the magazine and insert a new mag. And Anderson says, "Oh God!" And Elias is chasing through the building with a gun. And I said, "Luis, you know, don't do that. You know, I'm going to kill that son of a bitch." And no, you're not. You know. So the chief made Anderson pay for the car, all the damage, new seat, fixed the floorboards, all that sort of thing. All over a dead snake, you know, but whatever. Yeah, they're incredible. I bought my homicide detectives pairs of coveralls. Okay, I had a detective who was monk. He was like OCD to the max. All right, he shows up at his first crime scene. And his coveralls are pressed and starched. And they have crease, military creases. You cut your finger on the crease. Everybody's like, "What's Kenny doing?" "Well, it's Kenny. I mean, you know, it's Kenny. So, what are you going to do about Kenny?" You know. The place we're in, two dopers, man and woman. A guy shoots his girlfriend in the chin downwardly with a .357 Magnum armor-piercing round. Goes through her torso, exits her, goes through the sofa, goes through the floor, the subfloor, and buries in the concrete in the basement. They've been living in this house for 19 months. They throw their garbage in the single car attached garage. It's waist high, and it's enough to choke a maggot off a gut wag, all right? This garage. Kenny is the crime scene detective. I have the weapon in my pants, in the back of my pants. I said, "Kenny." "Yes, sir." I said, we need a gun. It's in the garage." And he says, "Yes, sir." And here he is in his outfit, you know. He walks over, he opens the door of the garage, he just stands there. He just stood there. I said, "Kenny, what are you? Are you paralyzed? Get in the garage, find your gun." "Have you looked in your gun?" "Well, yeah, I have, Kenny." And he just staring at me. So I pulled the gun out, I said, "Hey, I already have it." He didn't talk to me for a week. Yeah, they're merciless. I mean, they are. Because the only thing you can do in the business I'm in, you can laugh or you can cry. Crying is very old, very quick. So you develop a very dark sense of humor. Very dark. Gallows humor. That's the way it is. It's a protection device for your own emotions, is all it is. It's not you're that cold, but you know, it's just a way to protect yourself. So I was telling somebody here earlier, we had a woman who gets murdered and she's beheaded in the living room. We know it's a woman because we can tell by the body, but there's no head. We have to search for the head. But anyway, we walk in, one of my guys said, "Hey, Lieutenant, what do you think the cause of death is?" "Well, I'm not a doctor, but it seems like we don't seem to have Oliver here." It's a protection device, that's all. But yeah, the practical jokes never, ever stop. Ever. Okay? And some of them are like dangerous. But cops like dangerous things, so it's hard. Hello here. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Tony from Angleton, Texas. Other than the John Bonet catastrophe, are you asked to consult on ongoing cases now?
I am. I belong to the American Association of Cold Case Investigators. There are 50 of us in the group. We have cops, we have lawyers, we have doctors, we have forensic pathologists, Dr. Lee from Los Angeles, Cyril Weck from Pittsburgh, those kinds of people. And what we do is, if you're an agency, not an irate grandmother or a distressed cousin, but if you're an agency, and you get a hold of us and you say, "We have this murder case, we don't know what to do," send us your case. Send us everything. Send us your evidence, your photographs, everything you got. Give it to us. There's no charge. We charge nothing. We're going to give you 5 things to do. Do those 5 things, report the results. Okay, they do. Now we're going to give you 5 more things. Now do these things, report the results. Usually these are small agencies that really just don't know what to do. It's not their fault. They don't know what to do. So far, we've made 6 arrests with convictions. Some of them in 20-year-old cases. for small agencies, that reach out for assistance. But you still have the ego thing where people say, well, they don't need it. Oh, okay, whatever, but we do it. And it's keeps your hand in a little bit. And you're still doing something useful. You're working on a murder case. It's not your case, but it's become your case, because now someone's presented it to you. So that's what we do. Who's over here?
Hi, Joe. Tom Riley from Park City, Utah. Besides being teased as college boy, were there other advantages or disadvantages going into law enforcement with your college education?
Oh, I don't know. I think the greatest usefulness of college is to open your mind, to consider other points of view, not the views of your parents and your peers, but views of everyone in the world. I paid my way through college as a bartender in a very nice club in Pittsburgh, and in reality I learned more in that bar than I ever learned in college about human nature. But anyway, I think college does provide you with that opportunity to expand your horizon, to have a different perspective, to not be so emotional, to not be so angry about various things because your parents were, your friends were, whatever, which people tend to glom onto the emotions that surround them. All right, so college permits a little bit of perspective on what's going on in the world. So when I worked, the press called me the Iceman because I'd never ever raise my voice, get excited, whatever. And they said, "Why do you do that?" I said, "Well, it's pretty simple. What's done is done. We can't undo this. We can't bring that person back to life. Now we have to respond as soon as responsible." Now I had a deputy chief who was a politician. This is the funny part of that story. And all he wanted to do was be a chief of police. He was always a bridesmaid, but never a bride. So anyway, he was a real politician. So he became the deputy chief of investigations, and he believed if a murder went unsolved, it would reflect badly on him and his ability to be a chief of police. He didn't give a crap about the victim. It's all about him. I tried to kill that guy. I almost got it done. I mean, I was trying to give him a myocardial infarction, because the guy was he was wrapped around the axle like you wouldn't believe, right? I'd get the crime scene, he'd be there. I don't know how he did that. He must have a helicopter. He'd be there before I would. And he'd be a wreck. He'd be ringing his head, "What do you think, Joe? What do you think?" He said, "Scare me that," because maybe we won't solve it. And I would intentionally, I said, "Well, I don't know. He looks dead to me. He's dead to you." "I'll get this guy, oh my God!" Waiting for him to have the big one, but it never happened. I tried to grab his chest and hit the deck. It's perfect. There he is. Victim number 2. But it never happened. Who else?
Hi, my name is Mary from Washington State, and I'm just wondering, did you ever have one or many cases that you were shocked or really surprised by who the person was? Like you thought it was somebody different?
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, I've had that happen. In fact, in the first 5 years, I had that happen a lot. It happened less as time went on, but it does happen. Sure. You think you're absolutely, you've got a case, you've got a thing, and instead of saying, no, it's not it. So you learn by exposure to not follow sometimes what's going on. I'll give you a good example. I have a guy, he's in a bar, he has 2 women, they're friends of his. He's not dating or anything, but they're just friends. He's not drinking, he's there to participate in the pool tournament, and these 2 girls are mother-daughter, they're celebrating their daughter's birthday, and they're pretty drunk. So they approach him and say, "We're afraid to drive home because we're drunk. So could you drive us home and have somebody from the bar come get you in there where we'll be at home and the car will be there?" "Yeah, sure." So he gets in the car with him. Before he starts the car, somebody jerks the door open and shoots him in the head with a .44 Magnum, kills him right there. Boom. Okay? It's an attempted carjacking, and when the shooting happened, the guy panics and he runs. The woman is sitting 3 feet away from the shooter. She tells the officers that are there, my detectives, the shooter is an Indian male. He has a long ponytail, American Indian. He has tattoos on both arms. She knows him. He's in the bar all the time. He knows the victim, and he shot the victim from 3 feet away. They arrest him. They bring him in. My sergeant is preparing warrants to take him to jail. And let me talk to this guy. So I'm talking to him, and he's looking at me, and I said, so, what's happening here, man? He said, I gotta tell you something. I've done a lot of crap. I got a criminal record as long as your arm. I didn't do this. I've done a lot of things, I didn't do this. Okay. So I go to my sergeant, I said, let him go. What? I said, let him go. Sir, we have an eyewitness. I said, I don't care if you have an eyewitness. I don't like this. Let him go. We can always find him again if we have to. But I'm not putting anybody in jail on the basis of an eyewitness account, period, the end. And he's glaring at me. I mean, he's really angry. I said, what's the matter, Ray? You don't like what I just said? Let me tell you what you can do about what I just said. You can study for your promotional exams. And they might make you a lieutenant. If you keep your nose clean, you do a pretty good job. They might even select you to be the commander of Major Crimes. But that's not today, Ray, because I am the commander of Major Crimes. And turn that guy loose, and I'm not asking you, and I'm not going to ask you again. And so he released the guy. He didn't talk to me for a week. We turned the shooter. He's not an Indian. He has a buzz haircut. He has a gun, you know. The last thing I want in any case is an eyewitness. I used to go up to my guys at the crime scene and say, please tell me there's no eyewitness. Please tell me that. Because people, when they witness trauma, it's not that they're lying to you, because they're not. They are so overwhelmed by that emotion. They've never seen that ever in their life, that they become so confused and so wound up that they'll tell you anything and think it's true. She was convinced that's who did it. He didn't. He didn't even in the bar that night. You know, he didn't do it. You know, so that's how things go. So yeah, you have to be careful. And I was always careful. That answer your question?
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. The lady right over here.
Right over. Oh, right over here. Okay.
Hi, my name is Flavia Joe, Navy veteran from Minneapolis. Regarding your show, in the beginning you had 1 case per episode, and then now you're doing 2 cases per episode?
Yeah, sometimes we do it. That depends on the opinion of the people that make them. If it's a 1-hour case, they consider it 5 acts. They call it a 5-act case. They're going to put 5 parts together to make the hour. If they think they don't have enough to do that, they're going to make a 3-act case, and that becomes a 30-minute case. That's the reason they do it. You know, so it's 1's an hour, then you have 2 in 1 hour, and then you have another 1 hour one. Depends on how complicated, how involved it was. And we still have to limit out what we say anyway, because what I explained earlier about 43 minutes and 50 seconds, but they want to be able to present it in a certain way. So they make that decision, I don't. Okay?
Hi, Joe. How you doing? Bob from Rio Rancho, New Mexico.
Hey, I know where that is.
Right on. Yes, sir. I was just curious. Of the 17 that got away, is there any of those that, if they were to call you, if they want you to put the alarms on them, would you want that opportunity?
Of course I would. Of course I would. I tried one time to drive a guy crazy. It didn't work because he was already crazy. That was the problem. But this guy fled the jurisdiction to live in Eugene, Oregon to avoid me. He went to live with his brother, who was a medical doctor. He murdered a woman and 2 kids, and I knew it, and I couldn't prove it. I paid personally out of my pocket. It was a Valentine's Day discovery, so the press loved it. Valentine's Day massacre. You know, they were in their glory. I sent an FTD florist box to him in Eugene, Oregon, every Valentine's Day for 11 years. It contained black roses with the name of each victim attached to the rose. There were 3 roses in it. And I put the name of each victim. Now, if you were getting black roses from some crazy policeman in Colorado, and the FTD guy was required to make you sign for them, okay? You'd be suing me, and you'd be on 60 Minutes talking about me. Unless, of course, you killed him, you know what I mean? And he never made a peep. So I finally gave up. But yeah, I'd like to put a bullet in his forehead, too, if I ever got the chance to.
Okay, I'd like to introduce you all to the gentleman who has been on all of our cruises. He designed the T-shirt, and everyone agrees it's the best design we've ever had. This is DJ McClain from Seattle, Washington. Come on up. And this is a bottle of My Merlot that I'm sure Joe will be happy to personally autograph. But there's 4 more where that came from, and you can win them at the trivia contest. So let's reconvene in the theater at 11 o'clock for Heist on the High Seas, hosted by the digital version of the gentleman you just heard. Let's hear it for Lieutenant Joe Kenda.
I'll tell you one thing very serious. What this is Heist in the High Seas, is a game I created for Princess Cruise Line. They started playing it on all their ships effective May 1. And it's a theft of a $3.8 million necklace, and if you solve the crime with my help, you go to your stateroom and you turn the TV to a certain channel, I give you advice and tell you little hints about the suspect and so on. Collect your evidence at the bursar's desk every day. And if you're successful in the last day, you win the prize, you're an honorary detective, and they give you all kinds of free stuff. And so it's been very, very successful. Now they want me to do another one. But that's what you'll see at 11 o'clock. I'm going to go too because I haven't seen how they present it. So.
And then we'll reconvene after lunch here at 12:45 to have a Q&A session with Carl Marino and the other Knoxville reenactors. Thanks all, and see you soon.